Hello and welcome into another episode of the NFL Roundup Podcast. I'm your host, Shane Stanley, and I'm joined by my co-host, John Hepso, and we have a third this week, Zach Skinner.
Our local Ram ambassador.
So Zach's a big Rams fan, so we figured after the game this week we'd have him on, talk about the game a little bit, and so I'll start with that, Zach. You must be pretty happy.
Oh, extremely happy, especially being the only guy who's been cheering for the Rams every step along the way since the playoffs. Oh, it feels so good to actually see
Absolutely
them
gross.
win. Especially that night where they were playing Tampa, and everybody was against the Rams, and to see them come and win the Super Bowl is even better.
Surreal.
That was definitely the moment it all went south for fandom of our friend group with the Rams.
Yeah.
As soon as they faced Tom Brady, it was game over.
Yeah,
That was the nail
it
in the
It
coffin.
was
Yeah.
very cutthroat. Yeah.
Well,
But this is 7 games now, guys, that we've had where it's been within 7 or 3 points. So it's been 6 straight with 3 points. So it's another close game this week.
it was a great playoffs, to be honest. Ever since the first round, really. The first round was
Yeah.
just gross. Absolute blowouts everywhere. But, yeah, the last 3 weekends were great.
You kind of expect that now with the way that the wild card round is set up, that like there's going to be more junk teams playing wild card weekend. So I think you're kind of bound to see some worse matchups early on, and then as you get the good teams playing the good teams, it's gonna be better competition later on.
Yeah, that's right. So, let's just get right into it here. We're going to revisit the tail of the tape, where me and Shane picked either Bengals offense, Rams defense, Rams offense, Bengals defense, so on. So, Shane, you want to kind of elaborate on what you saw the Bengals offense against the Rams defense?
I was actually pretty surprised. I mean, obviously you look at the end result and how good the Rams defense played, and I mean the amount of sacks they had individually alone, makes them stand out. But I was actually surprised with the Bengals offense. Now I did have them favored in that matchup slightly, but just looking back at it from the stat wise, I mean they had 2 huge plays. Chase had a huge 46-yard bomb early on in the game, and of course the T. Higgins play. Right at the first one play out of the half, bit of a tug on the face mask, as we'll get into a little bit later. But so those 2 big plays, and I said the Mixon was the X factor on offense for the Bengals, and his name wasn't called a lot, but I looked back and he had about 15 rushes for 75 yards or 73 yards. He was about 4.8 a carry, which is a pretty good average.
That's outstanding, yeah.
Yeah, so especially against a good front. I'm not sure why they didn't go to that more. They had a pretty good flow of pass. Well, obviously they leaned more to the pass, I think. But, I think maybe they should have went to that a little bit more. And then the times that they did run it was questionable. I mean, some of the play calls down the stretch I wasn't a fan of. Again, we'll get to it.
Yeah.
But overall, you really got to give the nod to the Rams defense. They did well. For Cincinnati to only score 20 points while giving up 2 huge plays. Of course, the T. Higgins one questionable. And that was a touchdown, too. At least the Chase, they still had a chance to stop them. But overall, you got to give the nod to the Rams D and their pass rush.
Agreed. What do you think, Zach?
I thought it was a really good game, and like you said about the that bomb to Higgins there, I guess we'll get into that later. But a controversial call right there. But overall,
He almost tore Ramsey's face mask right off.
yeah, I love how they backed the refs even release a statement too. But we'll get into that later. But I really like the way Cincinnati they did play good offense, and like you were saying about Mixon. They was using Mixon a lot in the first half, but I didn't like how when the big plays came that they chose to go away from Mixon. I don't know what you
Yeah,
guys
they went with
think.
P-Ron.
They went with P. Ryan, over Pro Bowler
Yeah.
running back Mixon, which makes no sense to me.
Yeah. See, P-Ron, he's a bigger back. He's up probably like 250 or something. So I guess, all right, we'll give it to our massive back to see if he can pick up 1 yard. But to me, it was just a bad call on Zach Taylor's part, in my opinion. But I also give the edge to the Rams defense. Obviously, after watching the game, you can't dispute that.
No.
They also targeted their third running back, Chris Evans, and no, it's not a mix of Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, unfortunately. It's some guy I've never heard of. But anyways, he was targeted twice, usually on wheel routes. I thought that was strange. And something else I want to point out about Mixon, too, that I thought was interesting, that I never noticed during the game. Last week I said expect Cincinnati to use a lot of screen passes, too, along with the run game to counteract the pass rush. Mixon had 5 catches for a yard.
1 yard?
1 yard. So he had 5 catches and 1 yard. So
Come on.
they either stopped him completely right off the line or he went backwards. So their screen passes to him were completely shut down. So I say they also looked at that as a point coming into the game that they're going to try to do to slow down the pass rush, and they keyed in on it.
They did. Yeah. So what about the Rams offense versus Bengals defense? To me, that was a wash.
Yeah, I mean, it was very close. It was, again, Cincinnati defense, you almost got to give them the nod here because, I mean, again, this is the 4th game. Very consistent point-wise. Obviously, the Rams had the special team snafu, which, by the way, props to John. He said that it would not only be a weird play in this game, but that the Rams specifically would miss an extra point, and they did. Yeah. So, give him his flowers for that one. But, that made the game interesting down the stretch, obviously, with Cincinnati having to go down 3 at the very end. But, I mean, I thought the Cincinnati defense did a great job early on of stopping Kupp. I know the Odell injury, unfortunately, kind of changed momentum because the Rams' offense was flowing in the first quarter.
It was.
They looked great. I mean, it was bam, 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 13-3. Odell gets hurt before the half. Cincinnati gets that big play. It's the start of the second half. Momentum's completely going their way. Stafford with 2 picks around the same time. First at the end of the first half, and the second one right after the Higgins touchdown. So it looked like it was old Matt Stafford, Detroit Lion Matt Stafford coming out there for a little while. But when it came down to it, it was the Cooper Kupp show. They're on their last drive.
It was, yeah. I mean, to me, the Bengals just smothered the run. They only had 45 yards rushing, and with the stable of backs that the Rams usually have, I thought that was an unbelievable job by the defensive line. Now they didn't get to Stafford very often. He had a lot of time. I heard Skip say, "Yeah, he had a chance to run down the street, buy a bagel, and come back and throw a touchdown."
Yeah. I mean, I know Hendrickson did get to him early in the game, and I thought hopefully that was going to dictate kind of the pace of it was going to be pass rush on both sides because, I mean, looking at it on paper, it wasn't really an even matchup when it came to the defense on both sides, and especially the front four. Like John, you said last week you weren't familiar with a lot of people on that Cincinnati line, so I didn't think that they were going to get there a ton, but I thought maybe they could. Stafford's not traditionally a running quarterback; he's not going to scramble around, but he did seem to have time.
He did. Who do you give the edge to, Zach?
You mean
Bengals offense, Rams defense?
Bengals offense. I'll go Rams defense.
And what about Rams offense versus Bengals defense?
Well, the Bengals did a good job on defense, especially stopping the run. Like Joe Mixon he was getting close to double in the entire Rams rushing, because Rams had 45 yards rushing the entire game, and so they did a good job of stopping those guys down. But when Odell was on in the first half, the passing game was insane. Like Odell was shaping up to have a massive game. Was he at two receptions for 52 yards? Like until he got hurt, like that was looking.
With the touchdown is big.
Like that was looking like a one-sided battle there until the targets for Stafford got minimized and they really put more pressure on Kupp. For that one though, I'm still going with the Rams offense because, like I said, they did win, so I'm going for the Rams offense. But they did do a good job on defense, especially stopping the run. But the corners that was covering like Kupp, like Eli Apple and that, like the passing, they didn't really stop the pass as much. But I'm still going to go with the Rams.
Yeah, the Rams in the first quarter looked like the Rams. And in the last drive of the fourth quarter, they looked like the Rams. But everything in between, it was the Bengals dominated.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I find the interesting thing to take away was going into this game I mentioned on the preview last week, that their rushing game, they got 3 solid backs. Now, just looking at it, like Akers, 13 rushes, 21 yards, 1.6 average, awful. Henderson, 4 rushes for 7 yards, 1.8 average, awful. Stafford had 3 rushes for 6 yards, nothing really to write home about. And then Michelle had 2 rushes for 2 yards. So, I mean, they've really shut down everything that was there. Made Stafford throw the ball. And at that point, you're hoping he makes a mistake. And he did make 2. So you got to give Cincinnati credit in forcing their hand a certain way and then putting them at what I guess you could say is a weakness to a certain degree with Matt Stafford and how he can be erratic at times. And they did force him into turnovers. And they did take advantage, unlike Tart in the NFC Championship game. When the opportunity's there to make a turnover, you got to make it, and they did.
Yeah.
Like earlier when you were saying about mixing and screen pass there, I noticed that the Rams did do a good job of involving their running backs in the passing game. Like Henderson
caught a lot of big balls, yeah.
Yeah, Henderson had, 3 for 40 yards? And I know Akers had a few catches as well. So they were utilizing their running backs, even though they weren't getting the rushing yards that they wanted. They were still contributing to the game, especially since Odell was down.
Yeah, well, they needed it because without Odell there, they only have Kupp, really. They had 2 of their top tight ends out, and then the running backs. And Van Jefferson, he's okay, but he's not going to bring you home in the Super Bowl or anything.
Yeah, he made a big error, too, to give up that first interception. I know it might have been underthrown slightly, but at the same time, too, you didn't want to have I guess you could say, one of your worst wide receivers compared to Odell and Kupp catching that in the biggest moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, like one thing, too, but the Rams offense that was interesting was obviously Higbee was ruled out before kickoff. And so going into the game, they did have a bit of a time this time to formulate some type of a game plan around the guys they did have. And we mentioned Blanton last week had a couple catches. I believe he only had like 8 all year. He had 3 or 4 last week. Then this Hopkins guy comes in the game 4 for 47. He's their third string tight end. I mean, not a whole lot of teams can put in a third string tight end and get pretty good production out of it, and they did. So I got to give them credit for be able to actually take that next man up mentality and actually formulate a plan and execute.
They did a great job.
Yeah.
So what about the kicking game, was? Shane, what's your take on that?
It wasn't a whole lot of big kicks. Like we both said it was going to be a kicking game. I think both teams had 2, I believe.
Bengals had 3.
Scores. Bengals had 3. So, or actually, Bengals must have had 2 because they had 20. And then the Rams only have 1.
Right.
So, and then they missed the extra point, too. So it wasn't as much of a kicking game as we had seen going in. And every kick wasn't necessarily a long one. Pretty routine. I don't know if there was even one over 40. They all seem to be like mid to late 30s. So pretty routine kicks. I mean, damn near an extra point. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, with the Rams having it was a bad snap and hold, so I can't really fault the kicker on that. No. So I mean, it was really a wash, really. Like if you want to give McPherson a leg up, and I'm just gonna pick him anyways because he's cool. Did you see him at the halftime? He was having the time of his life,
just chilling, listening to the rap.
I mean, he had 2. Matt Gay only had 1. I mean, you can't really hold the extra point against him, but it was a special team error, and So I mean, if you want to give a slight edge to McPherson, I wouldn't argue it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. To me, it was only the extra point, and it was the holder that. Well, Hecker, the punter, who dropped it.
Yeah.
And he almost made a play. Like, it could have went either way. But
tried to throw.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't know what he was doing when he picked that ball up. He's like, I'll run. Like,
scrambling around, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good.
You definitely wouldn't throw a touchdown pass or nothing.
No. Was it a pick? It was a pick and almost returned.
Yes,
right?
It was a pick, and they stopped it when it was on the way back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to mention that too, Shane, when you said about McPherson. I seen it afterwards. It was like everybody was in at the halftime show, and you look up in the stands, and the kickers just are enjoying all the music and what's going on. And like the confidence of that guy just to not care about anything else and just start watching the halftime show when he's in the Super Bowl.
He's just really he's taking it all in. He's really enjoying the moment of being there, and like that's something we mentioned. We don't know if they're going to be back. Why not sit down, enjoy it, watch the show?
But then, isn't your coach giving you a pep talk in the locker room, like game plan, and he's just out there?
I mean,
he's looking around. Where's McPherson?
I mean, that guy kicks with such confidence that I don't think it would have made a difference for him anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's just his job. His job is just show up. Kick the ball when we need you to. Like, I guess there's no game plan for that.
No, that's right.
Well, Buzz, one that I really want to get into, and I'll start, is the coaching battle. I started in the first quarter because I noticed Zach Taylor was ultra aggressive on that first drive. At the 50-yard line, 4th and 1, they decide to go for it, and they're stuffed. Or no, he goes to chase, double teamed, and it's,
Yeah.
turnover on downs. The Rams go, boom, score touchdown, and it's a 7-point swing just on the coaching error right there. Punts the ball away. How the Bengals were playing, they probably get a stop. So that was one coaching error for Zach Taylor and none for McVay up until that point, obviously. And it was a pretty clean game leading right up into the fourth. And then to 3rd and 1 on the potentially tying drive at the end of the game for the Bengals. Zach Taylor calls a P Ryan run up the middle, right into the strength of the Rams defense. Aaron Donald is right there, grabs him, pulls him back for put him on 4th down. And I know you got 2 chances there, but to me that was the second coaching error of the game. And all game, Sean McVay never had one in my eyes. I think he called a pretty clean and composed game.
Yeah, I mean, I found like that really dictated the pace early when you go for it on 4th down at midfield. Now, this was right after their defense had held the Rams to 3-and-out to start. So, I mean, you are showing some good confidence in your defense that, okay, we're just going to shut them down on the next play. That drive did lead to the Odell touchdown. So, not a direct correlation of putting 7 points on the board, but you did give them midfield rather than, I mean, if you punt it from the 50 or their own 40, but on the snap, I mean, you could easily pin them deep. At least make them drive the whole field. So I thought that was an interesting decision early. I wanted to point out, too, on that play, specifically on 4th down, they went to chase, and Higgins ran a wheel route up around, and it created a natural pick play on the 2 Ram defenders. And T. Higgins was wide open up near the sideline, and he threw it to Chase. And there was almost a 3-man collision between the pick, and then that was Higgins' defender and Chase's defender, and Chase was kind of in the middle. And they almost all sandwiched and converged at one time, and the ball ended up squeaking out. And like the ball bounced over to Higgins, and he just picked it up. What can I really do?
Yeah.
So I mean, it was. Obviously on 4th down, you're going to make a call for your best players. But I just thought that was interesting that they tried to get it to him quickly and not get the pass rush chance, and it ended up costing him here.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Zach? Who do you give the coaching edge to?
I'm going to agree with you there, John, when you said about using P Ryan. There was 2 times in this game that they used P Ryan in crucial moments that they shouldn't have. It was there was one in the first quarter too that it was 3rd and 1, and they chose to go with P Ryan over Joe Mixon, and he was stopped for no gain, and it was turnover on downs. Well, they punted the ball, and it's the same as that last play, the second last play of the game where Aaron Donald held on to P Ryan. Don't you think in a big moment like this in the Super Bowl, 3rd and 1, you're going to go with Joe Mixon, who you definitely going to have more faith in than some guy that's, I know he's a big guy, but obviously he's not the Pro Bowler Joe Mixon. So why in a crucial moment like that would you trust somebody who's unproven as opposed to your best back and probably one of the top 5 backs this year in the league?
Yeah, I agree.
I have 2 points on that. Number one, I haven't seen anything per se, but perhaps Mixon had some sort of an injury that we're not aware of, and that's kind of their secondary guy that they had to go with. I haven't heard anything about that, but just curious as to whether or not there was something else there externally as to why he was in there. And number 2, would it had made a difference? I mean, if that's Mixon in there and Aaron Donald's wrapped around your leg, does it really matter?
I think if it's Mixon, he bounces it outside.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, P. Ryan obviously isn't a straight line runner or anything like that either. I mean,
he's your hammer, right?
Potentially, yeah, he's bigger, and that's the mindset. You just, if you're going up between the A gap there, I mean, you're more so going to go with your bigger, heavy-set guys rather than your speedy, elusive guys. But, yeah.
I was also thinking, I mentioned to Zach last night, that I was thinking maybe Zach Taylor was overthinking the situation. And he said, okay, if I put P. Ryan in the backfield, then they're going to automatically assume I'm throwing the ball, maybe drop 7 out, only rush 4, and then we can squeak through the middle for 1 yard. you have your backup back in there, and maybe he's trying to manipulate McVay into calling the opposite defense, a favorable defense for a run for 1 yard,
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? Who knows what he was thinking there?
Yeah, so that one seemed like it was pretty consensus that McVay called a pretty good game, and so he did well, and we'll give him props because we've been a little hard on him on here too. So give him props when it's due. He called a great game,
He earned it.
Yeah, I'm gonna move on now to some of the turning points of the game that came up, and there was a couple, that stand out to me. Was the whole probably the start of the Bengals comeback, I guess, because it's 13-3. Odell gets hurt. That's probably the catalyst to the whole thing. Shortly after that, I mean, you get Stafford throws it deep, gets picked off. So Cincinnati has the momentum, but then there's this guy running on the field off their sideline. I don't know if it was an inactive player or what the deal was with that inactive player, and comes running onto the field, and instead of getting it at the 20, now it moves back to the 10, and it's like it was I want to say a minute and a half or a minute and a little bit.
Yeah, it was
left in the half. So I mean, not a whole lot, but those extra 10 yards, I mean, it certainly would have helped them. Butterfly effect. You're calling different plays, you're doing different things. So, yeah, could that have changed the outcome? I mean, could they have gotten 3 points there? What did they lose by? 3 points. I mean, it could have really cost them there. So that's one that, even though their momentum stayed up, they didn't score on that drive. So I guess it did stall them to a certain degree. But then they came out. They had a big start to the second half. So that was the turning point in the Bengals' favor. And then in terms of the Rams, I mean, they just really fell on Cooper Kupp in that last drive and took over, and that was the biggest change in them.
Yeah. What about you, Zach? What's your turning points of the game?
Yeah, the first turning point I had was, like Shane mentioned earlier, was the Odell injury, especially how hot he came out of the gate, how much they were relying on him since they were covering Cooper Kupp nonstop with there was 2 people on him almost all times. And that gave a lot of chances for Odell because he could break man-on-man coverage. But when he went down, there's no other real receiver, I would say, that's on LA that can really break out of a man-on-man and just say get himself open. So that kind of took away a lot in the passing game, and they had to get more creative with the use of their third-string tight ends and running backs. But I think that's when it started to come back in Cincinnati's favor, and especially after the half, that big pass with controversial call to T. Higgins there, and when he beat Ramsey for that touchdown. It's like that was when it started. That's when they started gaining momentum and started getting back into the game.
Yeah, I agree. Turning point. I don't know if this is a turning point or not, but it's just like you guys said. 2 minutes left. Stafford throws a pick. The Bengals get the ball back after the half. They have potential of putting up 3 points and then potentially putting up another 7, which they did put up 7. So like Shane said, 3 points would have been a world of difference. But for them not to capitalize there, and then on the Stafford pick in the second half, not to capitalize there, it was the Rams defense that just turned the game around for me. It's like the momentum swinged in the Bengals' favor, but then it was like a little fire started in the hearts of the Bengals, and then Aaron Donald came over and stomped it out.
Yeah, so they had those 2 turnovers and only got the 3 points off them. And I believe the second interception by Stafford, they were in field goal range, is like wherever the ball landed. I'm not sure if they even got a first down or if it was 3-and-out kick. That's what was coming to mind. Yeah, I believe it was 3-and-out and then the kick. So they really didn't do anything with that momentum shift. Especially that second one. That second one really hurt them. Again, one reason they lost by 3 points, and if they got 7 instead of 3, then they're up by 1, right? Quick math. So, so I don't know. I feel like they could have done more with that, especially, you get the pick at the end of the first half, T. Higgins, another pick. I mean, everything is rolling your way at that point, and then have 3 straight incomplete passes. Yeah, it was definitely hard.
Yeah, agreed. So let's get into our quarterback grades here. We'll start with you, Zach. We'll go with Burrow first.
Go with Burrow. Well, I'm gonna say I'm not a Cincinnati fan, but I do like Joe Burrow, and I think that this game was not on him at all. I think he played a good game. He never had no interceptions. He was doing what he could. He had pretty good. He had 22 attempts for 33 attempts and 22 completions. He had a pretty good game, and I just think it was like a few coaching errors and a few things that went his way. So I'm not going to knock Burrow for that. I mean, what are we going to grade the quarterbacks on? Are you talking 1 out of 10? What do you
We'll
guys
go
think?
A to F.
A to F. Okay. Well, I will give Joe Burrow an A.
Standard.
Then I will give him an A. He did play a good game, 260 yards, 1 touchdown. I don't think the game going against him was his fault at all.
Yeah. See, I would give Burrow maybe a B minus to a C. He played good, but I was expecting a Brady-esque drive at the end, right?
Yeah.
That's what I had written in my notes. This is Joe Burrow's Tom Brady moment. All the comparisons, everything. If you're being compared to Tom Brady, you know, and you don't come through, I can't give you an A. You got to win the
No.
game to get the A. And yeah, I'll go B minus because there was a lot of throws he could have made that weren't made, and he held onto the ball too long sometimes. You can't take 7 sacks in Super Bowl. That you just can't do it. You just got to throw the ball out of bounds or get it out of your hands a little quicker. So that's my grade for Burrow.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go too hard on stats. I mean, it's not a fantasy podcast, but I mean, he had 66 completion percentage, which is okay from an overall season. But in the biggest game, you probably want a bit more. He had under 300 yards, 1 touchdown, a questionable one at that, and add on to the fact that was 75 of his 260 passing yards, just in that one chunk play that arguably should never happened.
And the chase play.
That takes a lot off of it. So, yeah, I mean, those 2 chunk plays make up almost half his yardage. Mixing through touchdowns, so they had to come up with some trickery just to be able to move the ball. Another thing, too, Joe Burrow's 25 years old. He had 2 rushes for 3 yards. You've got to be able to run the ball, especially on a couple of those 3rd and 1s. Josh Allen was running over the Chiefs' defense for 3rd and 1s a few weeks back. You've got to be able to do it. I trust Mixon, then Burrow, then Pirine. So I hate those play calls even more because he's almost 3rd on the depth chart when it comes to rushing for a 3rd and 1. Run a sneak. I mean, I don't try something.
Yeah.
Like I know not all that's on him, and that could go back to the coaching a little bit, but I do got to dock him a little bit. And as John mentioned, I mean, you get sacked 7 times. Not all of them were just straight up 2-second rushes. A lot of them were holding on to the ball a little bit, could have threw it in the dirt. I know damn well Brady and Rodgers and those guys do not get sacked 7 times. That don't happen.
No.
They try to get the ball out fast. So, John, you absolutely stole my grade. B minus, absolutely.
No, I'll start with Stafford. I'm going to go A minus here. I don't think he had a great game. I think he played just good enough to win this game. And he just faded Cooper Kupp on that last drive. He knew that was his only option. And everyone in the stadium knew it was his only option. And he still made the throws. With that no-look pass, that was one of the best Super Bowl passes I've ever seen.
Yeah.
He's looking 15 degrees this way and makes a pass over here. It's like, man, such an impressive throw. And for Cooper Kupp to not be thrown off with the boys must practice this, like, every second week. Or they're just doing it in the park or something. Because it looked too routine for any combination of players, So A minus is my grade. The 2 picks are really docking them there, but
You can go ahead, Zach. I'll pick up the slack at the end.
Yeah, talking about Stafford this game, though, I know he did have 2 interception stuff. One of them was tipped, and one of them was a really kind of a risky throw into the end zone. But he did good. He had a really good game, in my opinion, anyway. He had about 280 yards, which is not really great, but still he got it done when he needed to, especially after losing Odell. Now, the last drive of the game, I was going to mention the no-look pass, especially when we see it after the game and just realize how crazy it was. Like, in the game, in the moment, we didn't notice Stafford threw a no-look pass to Cooper Kupp on the final drive, but just to think, like, how risky that could have been. And, like, the confidence of him and the chemistry he has between him and Cooper Kupp to get that done, I think that he won the game in his hands, him and Cooper Kupp. I know Cooper Kupp got MVP, but after the half, when they were down, the ball was in Matthew Stafford's hands to win this game. And I gave him an A minus, the same as John.
I'm gonna dock him a little bit. I'm gonna go with a B plus because I think him and Burrow had very similar games. I'm giving Stafford a bit of an up just because he won the game, but I'm also docking him a little bit because he had the turnovers. So basically, what it comes down to is he did win the game on that drive. I'll completely agree with that. Very similar completion percentage for him. I mean, yardage, very similar. Like I said, I can't give one an A and one a B. Very similar stat wise. As Zach said, there was low risk in one interception because it was basically a throwing punt. The other one you can argue was scrawny no neck. I mean, it was off his hand. I mean, you got to put it on the receiver a little bit. But I also got to dock Stafford a little bit. I didn't like that no look play. I really didn't because I mentioned it to you when I brought in our meeting last night that could have lost their whole season just because he's trying to throw off a defender. Kupp's not right where he was. There was a safety behind Kupp, and Kupp did have to extend a little bit to get it. It wasn't perfectly where it needed to be. Kupp was pretty open on that play, so did he need to do that? I don't know. So yeah, overall, I mean, he won the game. The ball was put into his hands, which we said McVay has to do in the fourth quarter. In this game, he did. When they got down to the goal line, even though they were killing clock, they continued to let him throw. There's a lot of penalties down there, but they were penalties because Kupp was getting open. Instead, even down on the 1 yard line, he continued to put the ball in Stafford's hands, and he came through. So I'll give him a bit more credit on that. And he did hurt his foot, and same for Burrow too. I'll give him props for both of them being really tough, coming back from plays that looked like they were potentially hurt, and they're just going to put it all on the line for the last game. Stafford came out a little bit better than Burrow, and obviously he's getting a ring on his finger, so I'll give him a B plus.
Agreed. But just to mention that no look pass, to me it wasn't the safety he was trying to fool. It was the linebacker.
It was the guy in front. Yes.
You could see the linebacker shift to the right, and if he didn't shift, Kupp wouldn't have been open on that play. The pass rush was getting into his face. I think it was just an unbelievable play. I think they practice it every week, and they just reached into their bag of tricks and pulled out that,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I shouldn't completely dock him for a what if, because the fact of the matter, he did complete it.
It was a perfect pass.
Yeah, nothing happened bad. It's more so what could have been, but that's what Stafford does. He doesn't get credit for it. He done the sidearm throws before Mahomes. Yep. He and these no look passes. I mean, he does the same stuff. It's just he don't get the credit for it because like Mahomes is doing it in a more fun and fancy way, I guess.
Well, he's winning, and Matthew Stafford was never winning, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I mean, I guess people weren't seeing it, but Stafford really was doing that before Mahomes ever did.
And after another brief intermission, my camera keeps shitting the bed every week, it seems like. So let's jump right into it here. We're at about halfway through the podcast, so let's talk about the halftime show, the Super Bowl. What do you think of it, Shane?
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, it was good to see some old faces. As we said, 50 Cent made a random appearance that nobody knew about.
Upside down.
Upside down, yeah. I've seen a couple good memes about it so far. Yeah, no, it was pretty good to see some old faces. I mean, this is kind of stuff that we grew up on, maybe even people older than us. So I mean, it's not this pop and hip hop junk that's been going the past couple years. I just have the one wish that there's like some rock band or something, some AC/DC or something one of these years. But until that moment, I'll take this.
Buzz roll out in a wheelchair. You shook me all night. Old as hell. Yeah, I can imagine now. But I really thought they appealed to players this time, opposed to attracting a different kind of crowd to the Super Bowl. And it didn't even matter because, they still got 100 million viewers. They didn't dock in that sense in any way. But do you have a take on the halftime show, Zach?
It's like going from the last couple Super Bowl halftime shows to this one. This is definitely my favorite one I've watched for sure. It was like I like the kind of music better, especially last year with J-Lo and Shakira. I mean,
they were
we watched it, but I didn't really. They were hot, but we didn't really listen to the music, right?
Yeah.
And but this year I thought the halftime show was great. Like appeals to players. Like obviously it appealed to McPherson because he was watching it during the whole half,
He
like
loved it.
at half.
Hmm.
He was just loving it, taking it in. But yeah, it was a bit different than usual. Like Shane said, it's usually always like a pop rock,
Mm.
like last few years. But I did like the change, and I think they finally started listening to like this is the kind of music that the players normally listen to more so than what the viewers want to see. It
Yeah.
was a nice change.
Um, what was I gonna say? Damn, slipped my mind. All right. Well, if it ever comes back, I'll say it. But let's talk a little bit about Cooper Cup and what he pulled off this year. So I'm just gonna list off the accomplishments now. And so we got Offensive Player of the Year. He was in talks for the MVP, never got a vote. You know, it is what it is. You got the Triple Crown for receiving, which means led the entire league in receiving yards, receptions, and receiving touchdowns. Super impressive. And of course, the Super Bowl plus Super Bowl MVP. You know, I'm almost questioning, is he one of the most dominant players in football? What do you guys think?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this was like I found just in a vacuum of this game, it kind of epitomized his whole season. Like, no matter how many people you throw at him, once Odell goes down, I mean, they're throwing a house at him. They already had him in check regardless of that. And then when it really matters, when they really need him, he steps up with 4 catches, with another 45 yards, another touchdown. You get 2 in this game, and you consider it a quiet game for him. Just a remarkable season. And like this was like this season alone could have really put him in a Hall of Fame worthy status, and this season will come up when his time comes as to whether or not he's going to get a gold jacket, because just what he pulled off this year is just not something that we've ever seen. And it's certainly a receiver of his stature, more of a slot guy, not typically a guy who's going to get a lot of touchdowns. He's not a big red zone threat when it comes to one-on-one fades or anything like that. So it's interesting to see him score a lot, because like a lot of those traditional slot guys don't always get a ton of touchdowns. They get a ton of catches and a ton of yards, not always score. So for him to win the Triple Crown, I think that's probably one of the biggest feats you could ever have.
Yeah. And Zach, you had mentioned a stat about Jerry Rice. You want to kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, I seen the stat there. It was after the game that Cooper Cup. They were comparing Cooper Cup to Jerry Rice, and it was talking about what Cooper Cup has accomplished this year with the Offensive Player of the Year, Triple Crown, Super Bowl, and Super Bowl MVP. And it said Cooper Cup did in 1 year what Jerry Rice, the same accomplishments in his entire career.
It's unbelievable. Jerry Rice, the
And
greatest receiver of all time.
exactly, yeah, he's heralded as the best to ever do it. So I mean, it's pretty rare territory. And again, Royce is one of those guys who stylistically is going to beat you because of his size, his strength, his route
Yeah.
running. Like Cop really isn't that guy you look at and you're like, yeah, he reminds me of Jerry Rice, but he can do what he did, and that's pretty phenomenal.
To me, Jerry Rice is a combination of Cooper Cup and like Devontae Adams or something.
Mm.
You know, like a
Yeah,
combo
like
guy can do everything.
yeah, just do a bit of everything. Even like a Randy Moss, like a bit of size, good route running, good just good agility. And another thing, like the thing that's really slowed down Cup too has been injuries, because he is smaller. For example, when the Rams played the Patriots 3 years back, Cup was not in that game.
Thank God.
They only scored 3 points, so you can certainly see how he affects their offense. Yeah, thankfully they only had 3, but yeah, like you can see what a big piece of that offense is, especially when Robert Woods goes down this year and Odell goes down in this game. No Higbee, all the injuries, like it was starting to mount as to what they could do offensively, and he just put the team on his back and he did it, and that would really epitomize his whole year.
Yeah, to me, the Rams may have 2 of the most dominant players in football in Aaron Donald and Cooper Cup.
Absolutely.
You got to double both of them, and even if you double both of them, they can still make massive plays.
Mm-hmm.
So, talking about Aaron Donald, uh, you know, this Super Bowl, does it solidify him as one of the greatest defensive players of all time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not always the guy who's fully sold on him. A lot of this is just because he does get double and triple teamed a lot. So I don't necessarily see all the production that you see for some traditional guys. Now, another thing too is he is lined up over the center, and those guys in the D tackle positions, they don't get sacks, they don't get a whole lot of pressures. Like, but this guy does. You can put him anywhere. If he was a guy that was strictly off the edge, there's no telling how many sacks he can get. So, I mean, it certainly makes the case for all time. I mean, you start to get these numbers. A Super Bowl certainly gets it. I think the MVP certainly would have, like, there's talk of him that he might walk away now. I think if he got the MVP, is certainly would have, okay, literally what else can this guy do? The only thing he's never got was the Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP, and he gotten it, and we said it was a toss-up between him and Cup, I think it's almost no question that he would walk away. So I don't know, maybe he tries to come back next year and get the MVP. Who knows?
What do you think, Zach? Where do you rank him?
Well, I think he has to be up there in the best defensive players of all time, especially just what he did in this game. It's like, I know even in the first half, like Aaron Donald's stats in the first half didn't really reflect us talking about him as the best defensive player of all time. But watching the game and seeing every time he moves, two or three guys had to adjust just to account for one guy. So Aaron Donald always he was double teamed for most of the game, and I know there was only a couple times in this game where he ended up on man coverage, and when he did, he just bulldozed through and made a big play.
Yeah.
It's like he makes everybody better just by being there, and gives everybody else the opportunity to make big plays, like Leonard Floyd and the other guys
Von
who
Miller, of
made big
course.
plays. Von Miller too had 2 sacks, right? Because Aaron Donald's taken so much of that offensive line just to keep him in check
Yeah,
that you
like
got to give everybody else the opportunity.
Von is constantly getting one-on-one matchups, and then if you blitz a linebacker, you're generally getting Floyd versus probably a running back. I mean, those are the type of matchups that he's going to create. Even if he's a decoy, he could be banged up, hurt. As long as he's there, you have to put at least two guys on him. Otherwise, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
It's like, look at the P. Ryan play. Like Aaron Donald, he was one on one. He took his offensive lineman who was trying to block him, pushed him back, caught P. Ryan running, and then stopped them both right there for a gain of nothing. And that was probably one of the biggest plays of the game
Well, it
was
was
to
the biggest
solidify them
play.
winning.
It was the
Yeah,
biggest play until the last play.
until the last play. Yeah,
And then he blows that up as well. And it's like, you know, had
that last play looked a lot like San Francisco a few weeks back,
it was
where it was the
identical.
same Aaron Donald grabbing Jimmy Garoppolo and him trying to throw for some possible chance that they're not gonna to lose. But no, is I see it was a mic'd up version of Sean McVay. It was him at the last play of the game, and they were talking about. He said, "Don't worry." He said, "Aaron Donald's going to make a big play here." So
Absolutely.
just the faith that your coach have in you, and like everybody has all their faith in this one guy to make a big play, and for him to step up in the big moments, it's just like he has to be right, especially with his resume,
Yeah.
one of the
And that
greatest defensive players.
And that's exactly what it is. You need your best players to step up in the biggest moments, and that's what he's really lacked his entire career because
Yeah.
he's only been here once, and he really was shut down in that first Super Bowl. You didn't really see him live. They had a good game as a team, but he didn't particularly stand out. It was probably a bit of a black eye on his career so far. So to come out in this game, to really stand out, especially in the key moment and the key plays and the key downs at the very end. It is a bit of a shame that he didn't get the Super Bowl MVP because I think it really would have put the cherry on top of the cake there for him. But Cup had a great game too. There's a lot that he can still do in this game. He's 30 years old. I mean, as I mentioned before, there's talk of him walking away. I think a lot of that is like, what else is there for me to do rather than I can't do it anymore. Obviously, the guy can still go. 30 years old. There's a lot of tread left on the tires. We'll see.
Yeah. So, talking about the Rams, let's just move into Odell and what we think his future is going to be here. Shane, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough one because I mentioned when it happened. Not always. I mean, obviously an ACL injury. is pretty devastating. But it's not always the fact that it happened; it's when it happens. I mean, it can't really. Not only did they lose him for this game, thankfully it didn't, affect the win or loss for them. So at least they have that to fall back on. But I think it was a shoe-in that it seemed like he would be back next year. It seemed like that the Rams were happy to try to get him back. He said he would take less. Every sign is pointing towards him going back there. He still might. But the fact of the matter is, when the injury happens in this game, that's going to bleed over into the total offseason, into next season. They say when you tear an ACL, you may be playing in the next season, but you're not fully yourself. So when you see when he tore it last year, it was mid-season. When Godwin tore his, it was week 11 or 12. The guys like that are playing in the next season. When you tear it in the last possible game in February, it really creates a hard road back because you're missing the entire off-season training camp. You're missing preseason. You're jumping right into NFL action. You're nervous to get hit. It's the same knee twice. Is he going to be able to even run on that leg after doing it twice? His future is certainly looking bleak. He certainly won't be signing any long-term contracts. I mean, the only thing I can imagine is a low-money incentive deal to stay with the Rams, and it's really unfortunate for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just, me and Zach were having this conversation the other night, and we were saying that now, just say it takes 9 months for him to recover. He'll be back with the Rams around the same point in the season as he was this year.
Yeah.
So if he comes back and he gets 3 or 4 good games in, I think they could be set up for another solid playoff run.
Yeah.
And
at that point, he is coming back healthy.
Yeah.
Hopefully, like as I said, it does take some getting used to NFL game action. You're afraid to get hit, and you're not traditionally yourself the year after an ACL injury. But if he is back, and with good training and whatever, he could certainly bounce back and be completely himself. Who knows? But 2 off the same leg, I would say that's pretty unlikely.
Yeah. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, it definitely hurts him now going into free agency too, especially like having the lackluster career he had in Cleveland, and then like this breakout. It was like another breakout year since he'd been on the Giants, come to the Rams, and like what he's done since he's been here is pretty well overshadowed everything that he's done in Cleveland. Like he's been just doing amazing in the Rams offense, especially with Robert Woods coming down. He really stepped in and took that role on as the second best wide receiver on the team, and he's definitely responsible for getting him this far and for the win. I know he went down early in the Super Bowl, but still, his touchdown and yardage and catches that contributed to the whole of the win. And he's definitely a big player on the team, and it really sucks that he's gone down. But this offseason, it's going to be tough on him because, like we were talking about, John, like what team, like if he's going to be a free agent, like teams got to know going in, okay, like you can't play for most of the season. And when you come back, will you be capable of doing the same stuff that you were doing before you got hurt? Like, that's 2 big questions that people's going to have on their minds when they're talking about giving Odell money. And I think this injury really takes away from that because he's not going to get paid like he deserves, especially for what he's accomplished.
Yeah, like, obviously teams aren't going to pay him any serious money. That's out the window. He has absolutely no leverage in negotiations, which is unfortunate. The team has all the leverage, You're coming to us begging for a job, basically. And like Shane said, I could see a low-money, incentive-driven deal that it is really only in place for 25 to 20% of the season.
I would like to see him come back to the Rams, but I hope that if he came back, he'd be at least close to as good as he's been for us this year.
Yeah, but with Robert Woods coming back, he doesn't need to be a number 2 receiver now. He could fall into number 3, number 4 slot with Higbee back. It's a different team with Robert Woods there.
Yeah, I find that if he comes back and does what he does as a red zone threat, that's enough. As long as he's getting in the end zone, he's not going to get high volume catches. He's not going to get high volume yardage. But if he can score, he's going to be a factor on that team. Now, as John said, Higbee's back, Woods is back. Jefferson, I imagine they hope he takes a step up, and I mean, Kupp is what he is. So, I mean, do they need him? No, they don't. They don't need him. But he wants to stay there. He said he would take less to stay there. They probably don't have a whole lot of cap room anyways. It's really a win-win for both sides. I thought that was going to happen anyways, especially with this injury. I don't expect him to be anywhere besides LA next year.
Agreed. So, moving on, do you have any complaints with the officiating of the game?
Zach, I'll let you hop in on that one first.
Well, the one that I really like, I brought up earlier a few times, is that the first play that Cincinnati had at the start of the second half is when there was a big pass to Higbee where he ran in for touchdown, 75 yards. Like looking back at that, I feel like it was like he was holding on Ramsey. He had his face mask, and as he was gesturing to move and catch the ball, you can see Ramsey's head turn, and it seemed like the officials completely overlooked it, and it resulted in the loss of a touchdown. Well, touchdown. So, I think that was a real big one in my mind. That was missed. I don't know what you guys think. What about you, Shane?
My problem wasn't necessarily with a particular play. It was more so with the consistency. They went all game not calling. I mean, obviously that was a pretty egregious call on the face mask. It was pretty clear. I mean, to come out and double down on it, to say that there was no, it's just false. But also when you get down to third down from the 8-yard line, I mean, it would have been 4th and goal. They don't convert that. Cincinnati needs a first down to win the Super Bowl, and they call a slight tug on the back. I mean, way less egregious than the face mask. I understand that it benefited both sides in that sense. So, I mean, if you want to call it a wash, okay, no issue. But it was a consistency issue that didn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, okay, either call both or call none. That's kind of my deal. And it didn't call one, and they called the other. Yes, it balanced out that one team benefited from each one. But from a consistency matter, that's just something you don't want to see in this game. They pick officiating of officials that have performed well throughout the playoffs and advanced them to the Super Bowl. So one thing to mention is, I'm not 100% on this, but I'm pretty sure they take the best from each crew and they almost make an all-star crew as referees for the Super Bowl. So it's not necessarily a group that's familiar with calling the game with each other. So they tend to call less penalties because they don't know, they're not as comfortable with who they're working with. So traditionally, you just don't see calls, and they just want to let them play, of course.
Yeah.
But when it came down to it, it is unfortunate that when they did start coming out 3 plays in a row, it was with the game on the line. You just kind of want to let them play. They let them play earlier, so my problem is just the consistency.
Yeah, I didn't like you said. Obviously, there was a face mask on that Higgins play. There's no doubt about it. He reached up, pulled his face mask this way. Ramsey looked back and fell down. Wide open touchdown, 75 yards. You know, that's a rough play, but the refs did come out and say that there wasn't quite enough there to be called face mask. You know, it is what it is. But like Shane said, the consistency of it, the 3 back-to-back flags, that just took the wind out of the Bengals' sail. They stopped them, what would have been 3 times in a row on the goal line. And sent them to 4th and 8, and then do Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp come up with a magical play to win? You know, who knows what would have happened. But ultimately, that was the turn of the tide right there, was that linebacker. He had his hand on the waist of Kupp. In the moment, I thought it was a flag. Looking back on it, it seems like his hand was just resting on his waist. Yeah, it is what it is, you know. I can't complain too much, but the consistency was an issue for myself as well.
Yeah, so that just about does everything we had on the Super Bowl. So, I mean, now we're kind of going to move forward into some news topics. Zach, are you sticking around for a couple of the news topics? We're only going to hit on a couple because we went about 55 so far.
Okay, I'll stick around for a few news topics.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing we want to talk about that's been standing out lately is Kyler Murray and where's his head at in terms of his status with the Arizona Cardinals, because he he's coming out lately saying that all these false narratives with the media about him having he's brought it on himself by unfollowing them and stuff. Just, if you don't want to be asked about it, don't do that kind of stuff. I mean, it seems pretty self-explanatory to be, not like that. Anyways, his whole beef, it seems, is he's frustrated with how they got beat by the Rams in the wildcard game, and he was a big part of that. So who's he mad at? Himself?
He he said he feels like he was the scapegoat for the team. Like it was his fault that they had lost, which it was.
It was.
Ultimately, it
Yeah,
was his fault.
completely.
Or I guess it was Aaron Donald's fault too. But,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Putting fear of God into him.
it's not like they were playing a high school team. I mean, he didn't he throw a pick six on like in his own end zone. Like, I
yes.
mean, it's just awful decision making. I mean, he's small as it is, and he got, like I said, Aaron Donald, that obviously championship defense running down on him. Like, yeah, you're not going to put it all on him, and he is the scapegoat to a certain degree, but it's a scapegoat that, listen, that's the position you play. You're going to get the credit, you're going to get the blame. I mean, that's just it. Like, there's a bit of
I was just
everything.
gonna say it.
He was missing his lead receiver. He can come up with different excuses or whatever, reasons, excuse. I don't care which way you look at it. I mean, he's got to take credit, take it on the chin. They lost. They'll be back next year. I didn't even have them going to the playoffs. They had a great year. No reason to get frustrated and blow it up.
Nope, I agree. What's your take, Zach?
Yeah, I don't understand this move by him, like why he would do that. You got to realize too that that game, it was a lot of him. Like we were watching that game here, and like he was frightened the entire game. He was running, and it was like he was scared for his life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like his head wouldn't straighten. He was making a lot of bonehead plays. So it's kind of strange that afterwards he would unfollow the Cardinals. And I mean, yes, you lost, recollect, and come back next year and try to do better. But rather than taking this approach where he unfollows everybody, blames it on the team, it's not setting a very good example as a leader for the rest of his team. Because essentially, the quarterback is supposed to be the leader of your team. And it's like he's like the general of your army. It's like if your general's quitting, then what are you going to think? It's kind of it's putting a really bad like
That's
I
exactly what
think
it is.
him I think him and the Cardinals is just this is really getting off to like a bad start, like especially relationship wise. And I guess we'll understand more when more information comes out. But that's what I think.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. It's exactly how you said. Your leader cannot be handling things like in this passive aggressive manner. And how's he supposed to come into the locker room and look all his men in the face?
Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
and I mean this was a topic of discussion last year too, when it came to Seattle, and Russell Wilson was like throwing his offensive linemen straight under the bus and saying that they're junk and that he's running for his life, and it's very similar to what Murray's saying now. And I mean, not that that reflects their season, but Seattle didn't have a great year. So I mean, did he have a point? Probably. We'll see. But I don't know. It's just like John said, you can't go back into your locker room then and expect to be looked at as a leader when that's how you're treating your teammates. And I mean, now he's gonna get on the wrong side of ownership. I mean, it's just a mess. I mean, he is fantastic talent. He's gonna be a good quarterback for years to come. They're in a tough division. I mean, it's tough to be consistent, be good. You're gonna have tough playoff losses. Like that's just it. I don't know. Maybe it's an immaturity thing on his point, but I don't know. I can't imagine that there's gonna be anything good to come from this.
agreed.
But anyway, sticking in the NFC West, something that we've speculated a lot in our quarterback movement was that Jimmy Garoppolo will be moved on from San Francisco, and a report came out on Super Bowl Sunday that it looks like that they are going to attempt to move him by March 16th. So about a month. I'm not sure what the significance of that exact date is. If it might be some sort of cap ramifications, but they are attempting to move him by March 16th. So I wanted to just kind of go around the room here and maybe put out one team that you think that he would probably be a fit for, and where do you think he'll end up?
You could take this one, Zach. You go first.
So really, like personally, I haven't really seen like the full potential of what Jimmy Garoppolo can do. because him on San Francisco was always like Shanahan, and his offense was never around Jimmy Garoppolo as an individual, because it seems like their running game was always their big strength. So it'd be nice to see Jimmy Garoppolo go somewhere where he can kind of thrive more and like get more into the passing. But for teams that I think that he would go to, I'm not. I don't know. I don't think he would be a good fit for the Bucks. I don't think he would go to the Bucks. But maybe a team like, I don't know, the Texans is going to be looking for a quarterback, and maybe Denver, if they don't get Aaron Rodgers, would be two good teams now with young talent that's going to be able to kind of be a good fit for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, yeah, I could see both of those scenarios possibly working out, especially if Houston moves off Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
But my team is actually the Bucks. I'd like to see him in a pass-happy offense with Bruce Arians. I feel like that would really, you'd really see the real Jimmy G and what he's capable of doing. You know, every year it's, oh, hand the ball off to this guy, hand the ball off to this guy. You're only going to make 8 passes in the NFC Championship game. It's like, come on, your quarterback can't be that. I think he's more than capable than. He's not going to do what Brady did, but I could see them being a middle tier team in that division, 10-7, 9-8 type of deal if he get on the Bucks. What do you think, Shane?
Um, I don't think that's a fit at all. I really don't. I mean, Arians is a no risk it, no biscuit. I mean, you know the saying. Uh, that's the kind of big arm, strong quarterback. That's just not what Jimmy is. I mean, I like it in the sense that he has a lot of talent around him, but I mean that's not the mindset you want going into a season. Like, okay, we just need to hope that the talent around our quarterback makes our quarterback, and that's not really like he had good talent in San Francisco. They're winning, so I mean, take that for what it is, but the Bucs schedule is really rough. I don't really see that as a stylistic fit. Denver was an interesting one that Zach made that I actually thought about the other day, because I think Jimmy is best fit as a bridge quarterback, and I think Denver is looking to make a big move. Obviously, Rodgers is the big fish that they're trying to get, but if they can't, I think that there's potential that they can go with someone like a Jimmy G for a year, maybe 2, and either draft and try to develop. And if they can't do that, I think maybe Russ Wilson will be more available next season. So maybe have Jimmy for a year and then go over to Russ. So we'll see with that. But the team I had in mind that stands out to me the most, a team that has pieces in place that could certainly make a run. It's in the AFC's Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh is probably the best fit for him. I feel like they do have some talent. They do have a great running back there, which is something he's used to. Great coaching and a great defense. So it's a very similar layout from what he's coming from. So I think he can really step in there. It's kind of a familiar place in terms of what he has around him. Some good skill players around him. Give him some time to interact with some new teammates, a new system. It's not the West Coast offense anymore, so he's going to need some time to adapt to that. Not a team that's expected to win right now, so not a ton of pressure on them either to come in and win right away, which I think can only help them to gain more time to learn that offense. So I think Pittsburgh could be a team that's looking to make a move.
It is an interesting one for sure. Pittsburgh with that great defense, and now their offensive line is very shaky, and their run game is not great. So I can see them going heavy in the offensive lineman here in the draft, and maybe that does help their running game next season. But having a couple rookies on your offensive line isn't a great thing either. It's going to be, like you said, a bridge year.
Yeah, and I find that that could be something they started last year because that was a big point of emphasis last draft was their offensive line. They started to get that in place. They got Najee Harris. I mean, sometimes it's better to build the line first before you get the back, but I mean, obviously, he's very elusive, so it is an offensive line friendly kind of back. So yeah, no, it should be pretty interesting. I think that would be a smart move for Pittsburgh because then you don't have the pressure of going into the draft needing a quarterback. You got that done. Now you can focus all on the and they don't have a whole lot of holes to plug is the thing. but still not a team that's like, okay, their window is right now. It is to a certain degree when it comes to their core pieces. Like, you don't want to waste TJ Watt's career. Like I said, Najee's still on a rookie contract. But not a team that you're necessarily looking at next year, especially with, as we talked about, a very low to AFC, that they're expected to be a dominant team. They'll be competitive, try to make the playoffs, see what happens. If they don't, whatever, like I said, it's a bridge quarterback, and we'll try to find a more solid solution, like I said, possibly the next season.
Right. So let's do one more topic here. I see the Tampa Bay Bucks were on Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson. They're going to be super aggressive now to find a veteran quarterback to try and bridge the gap between Brady and whoever they find next. So who do you guys think would be a better fit? Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson?
That's tough. I think both of them are very similar. I mean, if you look at it from a longevity standpoint, I would take Deshaun Watson. I mean, obviously the risk is there. We know the situation, how that can go on forever. That could be strung out. He could be suspended. He could be on the exempt list. He could go to prison. We have no idea. This is so up in the air. There could be a completely, just a lawsuit drawn on. He's 25 or 26 years old. I think he's about 6 or 7 years younger than Wilson. So again, looking at it from a long, even if he does miss a year, I mean, there's still a ton of upside. I mean, his contract is already done. You don't need to sign him. It's going to get more friendly as the cap continues to grow each year. Wilson is 30, I believe, turning 33 this offseason. He is getting up there in age. Now, he is a pretty strong-arm quarterback. Again, one that Arians could probably work with. Deshaun Watson is too, though. So, as you said, I think both are potentially a fit. I'm guessing, John, you don't see this necessarily as a move that is likely to happen if you see Jimmy potentially going to the Bucs.
I had mentioned Jimmy just because I think that it'd be a good spot for him to open up and to kind of flourish. But obviously, as a Bucs fan, I would rather Wilson or Watson. I don't think there's any dispute in that. But ultimately, for me, I love Deshaun Watson. I think he's such a great player.
Incredible talent.
Like we had mentioned, he led the league in passing yards, passing completion percentage, and maybe touchdowns that 1 year where Texans were, 5-11.
4-12 team, and he led the league in passing yards. Now, a lot of that could be, stat padding and stuff, like Winston done that a lot of years, but still, it doesn't always correlate to success, but it is good to see.
Yeah. Who would you take, Zach?
After Antonio Brown's kind of fiasco with the Bucks, do you think they risk taking another high-risk player?
That's
especially
a great
like
point.
what happened with him, and they got burned by Antonio Brown, especially now that like he's trying to sue him. Do they take another quarterback who's going to have legal issues? Well, not another quarterback, another player who's going to be involved in legal issues on the team. But if Bruce Arians if he just wants a player who's going to listen and play, I think it would be better to go Russell Wilson. I know he's a bit older and he might be more in the decline, but at the same time, Brady went there when he was 43 years old. So, I mean, he's not even close to as old as Brady was when he went there. And Russell Wilson still got a lot of years left he can play. So I would feel like Russell Wilson would be a better fit, especially for Bruce Arians wanting somebody who's going to be a leader and kind of listen to him as like a boss.
I totally agree with that. That's a great take.
Yeah, that was a great point in terms of the risk. But it's really it's even worse considering, as I said, he has his contract, so he's making $40+ million. I mean, they're pretty pissed off about the Antonio Brown situation. They paid him about $4 million. So now you're timesing that by 10. It's someone who you expect to lead your team. Obviously, it's not a good look when your leader might go to jail. So I mean, we'll see how that goes. I mean, I don't know. It could be another year of him not playing at all. We'll see how it goes. I mean, Miami still was the biggest team that was out to get him, and then the whole Flores thing happened, so they might be out. I don't know. It's interesting to see how many teams are involved. Carolina, ironically, in the same division. We're looking at them. They're definitely a team that's going to be looking out for him. And as I mentioned last week, Seattle would take a big cap hit to send Wilson off this year. So potentially, I don't expect to see Wilson move this year. But the thing is, Seattle is probably closer to a rebuild. then a retool and try to push again into NFC West too. I see them fading rather than rising, so maybe it's not the worst idea to get rid of Wilson.
Yeah, I agree. Well, boys, you want to call it at that?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good for this week. We gotta thank Zach for coming on and giving us his his exciting Sunday night. Me and John certainly, as Patriot fans and watching Tom in Tampa, was we know that feeling. We know it's pretty fun to watch that run happen between January and February. So yeah, it's pretty good. We get to share the feeling a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's nice. It's exciting to see like your team in the biggest moments and see them come up. There's no other sport like football to get you as into the game as you do.
Yeah, because every decision matters and every play is crucial to the end result.
Yeah.
You know?
Like Sunday for me was kind of a roller coaster. It was up and down, like all the times. Like I think I stood up and sat down like probably 40 times during the game because I sit down, be comfortable for like 30 seconds, and I would stand up like, oh fuck, what happened? And but it was a hell of a game, and I'm extremely glad that I'm here today talking about the Rams. So
The local Ram ambassador, by.
Yeah, the local ambassador. Well, no, it's great having a third voice in, and we'll see how it goes. If it's something you're comfortable doing, we'll probably have you back a couple times, maybe a few times a season or something like that. Myself and John are actually going to take a bit of a hiatus now to ourselves. This is our last one. We said we just wanted to get one in after Super Bowl, do a bit of a recap, and we'll try to go monthly now, or every 2-3 weeks. Our next one we're eyeballing right now is around March 8th to get a preview of free agency. Obviously, not a whole lot of news topics coming out between now and then, so we'll gather what comes up between the next 3-4 weeks, put together some draft analysis, some free agent stuff. We'll be coming back around sometime in early March.
Mark it on your calendars.
Put it down. Like and share and all that stuff, and appreciate y'all listening. And hopefully we continue to grow. I know the off season is not a whole lot of fun stuff to talk about, but try to stick with us if you're not going to listen to the off season stuff. But we'd certainly appreciate it if you would, and of course be back for next season.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening.
All right.
Take her easy.
peace out. Later.